We're going to begin tonight on a strange news day with a story that's really taken our fancy, and at least unlike another story we have coming up, it actually happened. And by golly, it really is something to behold. Indeed, a GNS science volcanologist says a giant sinkhole that opened up after heavy rain over the weekend is the biggest he's ever seen in New Zealand. It's 200 metres long. It's 20 metres deep. It's now threatening Fonterra's road access to the Bay of Plenty dairy farm, and it's also a bit of a science experiment revealing soil that's 60,000 years old. Zac Fleming and cameraman Nick Monroe weren't the only ones to go to Tumunui to see the spectacle for themselves.
It looks like an earthquake struck this Tumunui farm near Rotorua.
Pretty much amazing.
Yeah. Like, this isn't normal for you, is it?
No, we've got tomos, and we got big tomos, but nothing on this scale. Yeah. And see it go so far, and then it wasn't until later in the day we found it another 200 metres that way.
But it wasn't an earthquake that created this spectacular sinkhole in the early hours of Monday morning. It was a month's worth of rain in a day, the biggest deluge in 1 hour, the heaviest rain to strike the area in more than 50 years. Farm manager COLIN and SHAREMILKER LOUISE were both woken in the early hours of Monday morning to apocalyptic scenes. The rain had created a fissure measuring 200 metres long, 20 metres deep and 5 metres wide.
When we found this one, it was a staff member who was in the pitch black, 4 o'clock in the morning on his motorbike. Had he driven across that race where the tomos both sides, and if the race had fallen away, it would have been quite a disaster. Yeah. Thankfully it wasn't, the race is still there, but thankfully he realised what had happened. Same thing though, we could have had cows in the paddock, but we have been, like my husband's been driving on tractors, and the tractor has driven into a tomo that wasn't there a few minutes before, just appeared under the tractor. Thankfully it was a small one, but the front end loader got caught on one side and the back of the tractor got caught on the other, so it was suspended.
If you're watching this story and you can see this spectacular chasm, our cameraman Nick is filming from one side of the sinkhole, and that speck in the bright jacket is GNS science volcanologist Brad Scott.
Basically here we're at Earthquake Flat Crater. This is a summit crater of a volcano, and the water is trapped in that summit crater and it percolates into the crater. The crater is also faulted. There's about 6 young faults that cross the crater, and the water preferentially flows down those faults, and it's what we call piping. It carries the sediment and material away from the fault, and that creates a cavity, and ultimately the cavity propagates to the surface and collapse occurs.
Sinkholes, also known as tomo, are caused by water dissolving limestone or other material below the surface of the earth.
More than 60,000 years worth of soil has been exposed by this event. Just like the rings of bark on a tree, you can see history here in the lines in the soil. This distinctive orange line near the top, for example, is the most recent Lake Taupo eruption.
Mr. Scott says the 200-metre long sinkhole has the potential to get even bigger.
This is by far the largest I've seen. With further rainfall events, I mean, the weekend's rainfall event was exceptional. That's sort of, 1 in 50, 1 in 100 year daily occurrence or daily rainfall rate. This will erode back, the sides will continue collapsing, and the hole will open over the next sort of decade or so.
Yeah, to 27 degrees, right?
Ultimately, nature will want to restore it to 27 degrees, the repose angle, yeah.
Louise says while the farm has several other tomos, she's never seen anything like this.
So we've been here for 4 years. In the last 2 years we've had 6 tomos opened up. They weren't here before. There was one over the road which had grown over, wasn't so deep, and all of a sudden, especially in the last 2 years, all these large ones have opened up. And you just don't know what you're going to find in the morning after a heavy rain. So yeah, we have to be a bit wise about when we do get these really heavy rainfalls now.
There are plans to fence off the sinkhole to protect stock because it's too big to fill in. Meanwhile, Louise says the sinkhole could actually bring Tumunui not only fame but fortune.
Yeah, it'll be part of the scenery now, and all the others will too. We've got lovely round ones, deep ones. Maybe I should create a tourist venture.
I was going to suggest that.
I'm thinking we should call it Tomo Nui instead of Tumunui.
For Checkpoint, Zac Fleming.